Me now, Democratic strategist and former advisor to the Obama campaign, Amisha Cross, and Brendan Buck, MSNBC political analyst and previously having served as a press secretary to former VP candidate Paul Ryan. Good to see you guys again. I'm loving the regularity of our meetings. Amisha, what do you make of this pretty astounding past 6 days for the Harris campaign? Has it been as close to a flawless rollout as they could have hoped for?
Absolutely. We knew within the first couple of hours of the announcement that Kamala Harris, the organizing team on the ground, had already put together several calls. We saw the Black women's call first, then we saw the Black men's call the night after, then we saw the Latino call, then we saw the Asian American call, then we saw the white women's call. And we're talking millions of dollars. In addition to that, hundreds of thousands of people and on the ground work in the battleground states. I think that what needs to be recognized here is not only was she record-breaking in terms of fundraising hauls within the first 48 hours, beat any presidential campaign in history, but in addition to that, has been able to create a sizable mass of not only excitement on the ground, particularly among younger voters. We see what's happening on TikTok, but also in terms of organizing power and potential. The level of people who have signed up to volunteer in less than 3 days is something we also have not seen. And I worked on the Obama campaign. Mind you, we didn't see it then either. This is something that is seismic, it is historic, and I think that it's going to last us through Election Day.
So, Brendan, has the Trump campaign really lost control of the narrative now? I mean, how caught off guard were they by this wave of enthusiasm?
Caught off guard to a remarkable degree, because this obviously was coming, or at least there was the significant potential for it coming for several weeks. People trying to push out Joe Biden. So it's a little stunning that they didn't have their act together. Now, there's to some degree not much you can do about a honeymoon like this. And she is getting the best news coverage, and the enthusiasm is incredible. That's great for her. That doesn't last forever. And I imagine at some point there's going to be a lot more scrutiny of her record. What is also confounding for me from the Republican end is there are plenty of issues to talk about with the vice president that she's vulnerable on, that they should be talking about. Dave McCormick, the Senate candidate in Pennsylvania, I think stumbled upon some of the best messages, and it's going back to the positions that she took in 2019 when she was running for president last time. She's going to have to answer for it at some point. And maybe she'll say she's changed her position on fracking, or how to deal with illegal immigration, or the Green New Deal. It goes on and on. There are plenty of things that they could hit her on, but some of these personality and racial hits are really working against them. I do think they'll figure it out before too long.
So, Amisha, who's your top Veep pick? And who do you think Harris will choose, and might they be different?
Here you come with the really tough questions. I think that she definitely has a very varied and large slate to choose from. But in terms of balancing the ticket, in terms of, to a point that Brendan just made, addressing some of the policy issues that she will more than likely get attacked on in the near future, I think that it's going to be helpful for her to have someone who is from a battleground state. If it was me, I'd arguably be looking at Shapiro, or I would be looking at the governor of Arizona, the senator from Arizona right now, Mark Kelly. But I think that those are among the top two. But in addition to that, she's also looking to find someone who will be a great collaborative partner within a Harris administration. So the other part of this is, yes, the campaign matters. You got to get to a presidential administration first. But the other part is you want to make sure that you have a partner who is going to be there with you day in and day out and have that level of partnership and collaboration like she's been able to have with the current president. And I think that that's going to really matter here. Someone who can also gel with her, who understands the policy leadership, who's going to be able to be a stand-in in many cases, but also someone who can bring some of the tougher areas in these battleground states to the Harris campaign, because the polls are still really, really tight. They were even within the margin of error when Biden was at the top of the ticket. They're at the margin of error with Harris at the top of the ticket. We know that this is a really, really tough election cycle, and every vote is going to count in a very small amount of states.
Yep. Okay, couple names that Amisha has mentioned there, Brendan. Relative to one of them, you posted, appreciate his service, but Mark Kelly for VP is Z's. And you put a yawn emoji there. Why not Arizona Senator Kelly? And if not him, who do you pick?
Look, I think Mark Kelly's bio is great, but I imagine a lot of the people boosting Mark Kelly haven't spent a lot of time listening to him talk. If you're Kamala Harris, you, of course, want somebody who can be president on day one, but you also want somebody who can go out and attack very effectively Donald Trump and J.D. Vance for that matter. And I just don't think that Mark Kelly really brings the fire and is not simply as good of a talker as you need, if you will. To me, the two obvious choices are Josh Shapiro and Pete Buttigieg. Both have executive experience, both incredibly smart who could take over on day one, and both very adept at attacking, being on TV, getting the earned media coverage. That is so essential. I mean, those are the jobs that you need. Both of those folks, I think, bring some challenges that I'm sure they're wrestling with. But to me, those are the obvious standouts.
So you mentioned J.D. Vance. And you then mentioned prior to that, Brendan, that you have to pick somebody who on day one can be president of the United States if need be. There's a fair amount of Republican remorse right now around their VP pick. There's a piece in The Atlantic that reads the Republican choice of J.D. Vance looks less like a masterstroke and more like the impulse purchase of a luxury good, an expensive handbag bought on a credit card the day before its owner gets fired. Trump should have kept the receipt. And then I know you're familiar with several weeks ago those reports that said that Trump was leaning towards or perhaps even had chosen Doug Burgum. But his sons, Eric and Don Jr., pushed really hard for Vance. What does it say that these two are that influential, if not the final voices in Trump's ear? Their careers are rooted in business. Their political experience exclusively orbits around their father.
Yeah, if there is remorse for J.D. Vance, I have very little sympathy for that. I mean, the things that he's been saying that he's been getting hit on were not secrets. I mean, this was the appeal to a lot of Trump supporters, why they liked him, that he said outrageous things, that he would own the libs. I mean, that's what you're looking for. But I think the other big part of it, obviously, is this was a very different election when they chose him. They thought they were running against Joe Biden, and it was cruise control. And then you could just have somebody go out there and poke fun at Joe Biden for being old, and it wouldn't really matter very much. That's a terrible way to choose your VP. And frankly, he's been worse than I expected him to be. Nobody likes a scold, and that's what J.D. Vance has turned into. And I think a lot of people are just frankly offended by a 39-year-old man telling a lot of people how they should live their lives. I expect him to be smarter than he has shown himself to be, and maybe he'll figure it out, but it's been a pretty rough start.
Can you give me a yes or no answer? Is J.D. Vance prepared to be president in case he was called upon to be that? Yes or no, Brendan?
Yeah, I struggle. He's obviously a smart guy, but he's not shown that he has the maturity, I think, that you want to see for a president of the United States. Okay.